Chapter 20. Kate, the vibration startled her out of a half-dream, that hazy, muddled space where River's voice sometimes curled around her mind. Half lullaby, half memory, she blinked into the darkness, disoriented, throat dry, heart skipping once before settling into a familiar ache. 2:43 a.m. A message from Ireland. She hesitated before opening it, thumb hovering over the glowing screen. Ireland never messaged this late, not unless she was drunk, high, or sharpening her claws for a round of passive-aggressive performance. The kind of messages that came with too many exclamation points and too little empathy. But this one was different. A simple, forwarded thread. No greeting, no snide comment, just the cold weight of implication. Feared you should see what he's been saying behind your back. Kate's eyes adjusted to the harsh blue-white glow as she scrolled through the screenshot. It appeared to be a conversation between River and someone. A fan, maybe, an ex, a woman with no name. But the messages felt wrong, too clinical, too deliberately spaced. The punctuation was almost robotic, and River, her River, never wrote like this. He didn't say ha ha. He laughed out loud. He didn't ask vague questions. He asked things that mattered. There were no spelling mistakes, no dodged vulnerability. Just clean, polite, detached lines. It wasn't his voice. She scrolled back up and read it again, and then her breath caught in her throat. It's always been weird with her. Wierd. Her stomach turned. Ireland always misspelled that word. Kate had teased her about it once, during a wine-fueled night where Ireland pretended not to care, then changed it in a caption an hour later anyway. It had stuck in Kate's memory like gum on a shoe, mildly annoying, but impossible to forget. She felt her heartbeat stutter. Cold flushed her chest, then her arms. She swiped between chat bubbles. Chat bubbles. She knew these phrases, knew the rhythm of Ireland's typing, her overuse of ellipses, the way she tried too hard to sound casual when she was furious, the slight spacing inconsistencies, the smug way she wrote sure LOL when she wanted to be cruel. It was a conversation with herself, posing as River. Kate sat up in bed, a sheet falling from her shoulders. The silence in the room pressed in tight, suffocating. Her phone trembled in her hands, or maybe it was her hands that trembled against the phone. What was this? A mistake? An intentional push? A final power play? Or a breakdown? Ireland didn't send things by accident. She was calculating, obsessively so. If she had forwarded this, it meant she wanted Kate to see it. She wanted Kate to believe that River had moved on, had been mocking her, and had made her a punchline, except she'd made the mistake of underestimating how well Kate knew River, how deeply she remembered his cadence, his pauses, his breathless, scattered way of typing when he was nervous, his love of lowercase, of letting silence stretch instead of using filler. This wasn't him. It had never been him. Kate's throat tightened. She suddenly felt sick. How many other messages had she received? Screenshots, whispers, forwarded things from Ireland that she believed. How many small manipulations had she swallowed as truth because she was too tired, too hurt, too done to question? She pressed her knuckles into her eyes, tried to breathe through the slow-growing panic that was settling in her chest like wet cement. She didn't reply. She didn't know what she would even say. Everything felt too sharp, too surreal. The ceiling above her blurred, the glow from her phone painting harsh shadows across the walls. The night was too still, too watchful, like the world was holding its breath. She laid back but did not close her eyes. She stared into the dark until the contours of furniture turned to water, until the first bird call cracked the silence outside her window, until dawn crept across the floor like guilt. Kate held the phone like it might bite. Her thumb hovered over the Instagram icon, hesitating just long enough to feel the weight of the lie she was about to tell. Then she tapped it open. The cafe was picturesque. Of course it was. That was the point. Clean white marble tables, a single bud vase holding a pale yellow tulip. The coffee art was perfect today, a heart etched in delicate froth. Her almond croissant flaked in golden layers that caught the light just right. She angled her phone, snapped a photo, adjusted the brightness, added a warm filter, typed the caption, "Healing looks like almond croissants and peace. Hashtag unbothered, hashtag soft mornings, hashtag reset." She sat back, looked at it. It felt plastic in her throat, but she posted it anyway. It got 23 likes in the first 5 minutes. A woman with soft bangs and tortoiseshell glasses smiled at her from the next table. "That's a really pretty photo," she said. "Influencer vibes." Kate smiled politely. "Thank you." The woman went back to her laptop. Kate went back to pretending. She scrolled through comments. Her friend Suki wrote, "You deserve this," and someone she barely spoke to anymore added a string of yellow hearts. But beneath the table, her fingers curled tight around her phone because the photo didn't show the 2 hours of sleep, the cold sweat she woke up in, the shaking hands that spilled milk when she tried to make the boys breakfast this morning. It didn't show the way her ears were still ringing with River's voice, not actual River, but the memory of him, that raspy, half-smile voice that used to call her darling girl when she was upset, the one she hadn't heard in weeks except buried inside his music, distorted, warped, almost gone. She opened her camera roll, scrolled past pictures of the boys in their superhero pajamas, past old texts she hadn't deleted, past a screenshot of a song lyric that had cracked her open 2 nights ago. "You wore me like a winter coat you left behind when it got warm." She didn't know if River had written that for her, but it felt like a bruise in her mouth. It also felt like something Ireland would mock if she admitted it out loud. Ireland, who hadn't replied to anything since the 2:43 a.m. message. No oops, no ignore that, no cover-up, just silence, like nothing had happened. Kate reread the forwarded thread for the 6th time in the bathroom stall. Her coffee is now cold, her croissant untouched. Her stomach felt sour. The misspelling still blinked like a warning sign. Weird. She tapped her fingernail against the stall wall in a nervous rhythm, then opened the text thread with Ireland. She considered typing, "You know I'm not stupid, right?" Then deleted it. She tried, "Why are you pretending to be him?" Deleted that too. Nothing she could write would be enough. Not without a flood of fallout, not without Ireland twisting it into another episode. Kate overreacting. Kate being dramatic. Kate is still obsessed with a man who clearly doesn't want her. So instead, she wrote nothing, posted a second story from the sidewalk outside the cafe, the trees blooming, the morning sun slanting soft through the branches. The trick is to keep blooming. No matter who tried to dig you up, a small part of her gagged at her own caption. But she posted it anyway. Let them think she was blooming. Let them think she was over it. Over him. Because the alternative, admitting she was unraveling, questioning everything, missing him so bad her ribs ached. That wasn't something she could package neatly in a 1080x 1920 story frame. Back home, her phone buzzed again. This time it was Finn asking, "Mummy, are you sad today?" She forced a smile and pulled him into her lap. "No, love," she said, "I'm okay." Because that's what you do. You post the croissant. You smile at strangers. You say I'm okay even when everything inside you feels upside down. Even when you're starting to realize the truth might have been manipulated. And worse, you might have helped destroy something real because you believed someone who never deserved your trust. She held Finn tighter, lips pressed to the top of his head. The photo had 98 likes now. The boys were asleep again. The house was quiet. And Kate, once so adept at moving on, at bottling things and burying them under productivity and sarcasm, was sitting in bed staring at a video she'd promised herself she wouldn't watch. But she had. Again. It was another velvet mask track. No face this time. Just shadows and haze. The same raw, gravel-soaked voice she used to hear in the half-light of Berlin nights. Same ache is buried in melody. And this one was different. No theatrics. Just a line she couldn't stop replaying. "You block my love, but like my mess. And I keep chasing a typing dot like it ever meant the things I thought." Kate shut her eyes. Let it sink into her bones. Because that was her. That was her. Refreshing old messages like they'd somehow change. Holding on to silence like it was proof. Pretending she didn't care and then aching when he stopped trying. Ireland had told her he was obsessive. That he didn't care about her, just the idea of her. That he'd lied, manipulated, faked vulnerability. That he was using music to guilt trip her, not to heal. And for weeks, Kate had believed it, or forced herself to. Because it was easier to be angry than to be wrecked. But now she wasn't so sure. She opened the draft folder again, not the emails this time, the songs, the ones he'd written, the ones she kept saving without realizing it, lyrics she swore meant nothing but refused to delete. There was another one, a line she'd screenshotted. "I wore you like a second skin, but you wore me like a secret sin." Kate bit her lip. That had been Berlin. That had been her. Holding him close in the dark and pushing him away in the morning. Pretending it didn't mean anything because if it did, if she let it mean what it actually meant, she'd never walk away again. And she had to leave. She had the boys, a job, a past, a wall so high it could barely let light through. She thought she was protecting herself, but what if she'd just been protecting her fear? Her phone buzzed again. It was a reel from a friend. a joke about healing and journaling. She didn't open it. She opened her text thread with her mother instead. Laura, 3:12 p.m. That voice of his shots, that's not a boy crying for attention. That's a man dragging his soul out of his mouth. Kate had laughed at the time, a tired, dry laugh. But now she remembered her mother speaking German when she was angry. Sharp consonants, rich vowels. Lass das Herz entscheiden, nicht der Stolz. Let the heart decide, not the pride. Berlin was still in her bones. She remembered the way River had whispered Katie, "You break my heart," with that silence in the hotel stairwell. Not accusing, not dramatic, just broken, just real. And now she heard him again in the music. "Your name still pinned to the top of my screen, like a bruise that forgot how to turn clean." She wiped her eyes. Her breath hitched. She could hear him singing it, not at her, but to her. Like she was still the girl from the train platform, the girl he wrote songs about, even now. What if she had been wrong? What if Ireland had always wanted her to doubt? What if she walked away from the one person who actually saw her and loved her and didn't run? The song ended, and the silence that followed was unbearable. She looked up at the ceiling, heart thudding. She remembered how River used to lie next to her and whisper nonsense, dreams and half ideas, lyrics he hadn't finished yet. She pretended to be asleep just to hear him talk. She'd kept that silence too. Now she missed it more than she missed anyone else. Even her own reflection didn't look right anymore. It was full of someone else's choices, someone else's fear. Kate lay down slowly, blinking at the ceiling as if it would answer her. The lyrics looped in her mind. "Where's the message you didn't send? Still stuck in your head, or did it end?" She whispered into the dark. "I never ended anything." And for the first time, she wondered if maybe, just maybe, neither had he. The next morning, Kate woke up still in the armchair. Her neck ached. Her laptop had died sometime in the night. And the cursor, the one that had blinked like a silent dare, was gone. She rubbed her eyes and stood slowly, feeling her body like it wasn't hers. It was Friday. She had a meeting in under an hour, a lesson plan she hadn't printed, a coffee she didn't have time to make. But none of it mattered, because when she'd whispered River's name into the silence the night before, she hadn't said it like someone letting go. She said it like a prayer. During her lunch break, she reopened Instagram. The school Wi-Fi was slow, which gave her just enough time to think don't do it before the page loaded. She posted it anyway. A selfie in the staff room mirror. The angle flattering, her lipstick fresh. The caption, "Turns out the best closure is no longer caring." She hit the post. She didn't believe a word. But she watched the likes roll in anyway, watching the little red hearts accumulate like proof of something. Approval, power, control. Ireland liked it within a minute. That made Kate feel sick. So did the 3 DMs from people she hadn't spoken to in months, all saying, "Yes, queen," and "Exactly, girl, preach." Kate locked her phone. She stood at the copier and tried not to cry. That night, after the boys were asleep, she opened TikTok. It was muscle memory now. Swipe, scroll, close. Sometimes she searched River's handle. Sometimes she didn't need to. The algorithm knew her too well. And there it was. A new Velvet Mask video. No face, just a dim flickering candle, a faint hiss of vinyl, and then his voice slow and low, like it hurt to come out. "I wait like it's war, I lose like it's chess, you block my love, but like my mess." Kate's breath caught. She could barely breathe. Because the line had been in her head since the last listen. Because he'd written it like he knew what she was doing. Because part of her, foolish, desperate, grieving part, wanted to believe that this was his way of answering. That he was still watching. That somewhere beneath the mask he was still him. She looked back at the mirror selfie post. She deleted it. No announcement, no explanation, just gone. Like all the other things she'd pretended didn't matter. It started with a drawer, one she hadn't opened in weeks. She'd been looking for a spare charger of all things, something mundane, something that didn't hurt. But what she found instead was a notebook, half crushed beneath a tangle of receipts, pens without caps, an old phone she hadn't powered on since last winter. Her breath caught as soon as she saw the cover, dark blue, leather-bound, worn smooth around the corners. The one she'd carried in Berlin, the one she'd used for stories, poems, grocery lists, and one night, a number. His number. She sat on the edge of the bed, fingers tracing the edge of the pages like they were holy. She hadn't thought about that night in days, weeks maybe. She couldn't afford to. But now it came flooding back so fast it knocked the wind out of her. The hotel had smelled like old roses and dust. Her palms were sweating. Her heart was pounding in a way that felt both terrifying and familiar, because River had always made her feel like that, like danger wrapped in safety, like coming home and falling apart at the same time. They were sitting on the edge of the bed, their knees touching, and he'd said something, a soft joke, a breathless confession she couldn't remember now, and she'd laughed, but her hands had been shaking. She'd known she was going to break it, even then. That's why she hadn't handed him her phone when he asked for it. She'd passed him the notebook instead, opened it to a blank page, handed him a pen, pretending it was romantic, poetic. But it wasn't. It was a shield, because if it was in ink, if it wasn't digital, it would be easier to walk away, wouldn't it? He'd smiled when she gave it to him. Not a bitter smile, not a confused one, just gentle, trusting, as if he already knew she was about to hurt him and loved her anyway. He wrote it in careful, small handwriting. And at the bottom, he'd added, "If you can't call, right, I'll wait." R. Now, in the dim bedroom light, Kate stared at the same page. His writing hadn't faded, neither had her guilt. She ran her fingers over the ink. It felt like a wound, like a door she'd sealed shut too early. She could still remember how it had felt, the panic rising in her throat the morning after, how she hadn't even said goodbye properly, just slipped like a coward because she hadn't been ready. Not for a real apology, not for real love, not for someone who saw her exactly as she was and didn't flinch. She told herself he'd forget. But then the songs came. The voice, the mask, the raw honesty of someone who had handed her every truth he had and watched her walk away with it. She pressed the notebook to her chest and closed her eyes. His number was probably still active. She could call. She could write. But instead, she just held the past in her hands and let the silence stretch until it hummed. Outside, the streetlight flickered against the window. In the other room, the boys were breathing evenly in their sleep. And Kate sat there, cradling a 10-digit ghost and whispering things she'd never had the courage to say when it mattered. "I wasn't ready," she breathed, and then softer, "I think I am now." The video dropped just after noon. Kate was in the middle of a lesson on volcanoes when her phone buzzed with a message from Suki. "Have you seen this? WTF?" Another ping, then another. Classroom blurred for a moment. She glanced toward the screen. The boys were coloring lava flows in reds and oranges. Finn had made his volcano purple. Of course he had. She excused herself, walked quickly into the hall, her heart pounding like a snare drum in her chest. She opened the link. It was grainy, filmed in low light, angled like someone was trying not to be seen. It showed a masked man, yes, but not like the real videos. Not with the velvet mask's signature haunting stillness or polished mystery. This was sloppy, shaky. The voice came through, nasal, almost theatrical. A bad imitation. Kate was never innocent. She used me, lied to me. She's toxic. The figure tilted his head toward the camera. Everyone thinks she's the victim. She's not. The voice tried to mimic River's register, but Kate heard it immediately. The flattened vowels, the strain, the missing depth. It was wrong, and then she saw it. The wrist. The man lifted his arm as if for emphasis, gesturing wide. And there, along the inside of his wrist, was a tattoo. A black and white compass rose. River didn't have that. He had a thin, almost faded line of script, Hebrew, the only tattoo he'd ever explained shyly as a tribute to Vera. Not this. Not this. Kate felt the nausea rise, because this wasn't River. This was someone else, and this was Ireland. Orchestrating, spinning, creating a fiction with just enough venom and vagueness to pass as truth. But Kate knew better now. She played the video again. Listen closely. No breathy R sounds, no soft syllables, no hint of River's slight northern lilt that crept in when he was tired or emotional. The one he tried so hard to hide, but that always made her feel like home. She paused the video and stared at the man. He wasn't even the same build. She'd seen River shirtless. Bruised and shaking, yes, but strong, lean. This man was bulkier, sloppier. And the way he moved, all performative, was a theater, was petty. Another message came in. "Ireland this time, told you he wasn't who you thought. Hope this helps." Kate nearly threw her phone. Instead, she laughed. Sharp, bitter, loud, because this was the final straw. Not the lie itself, but how lazy it was. How little effort had gone into the manipulation. How much Ireland had counted on Kate being too heartbroken to notice the truth. But she noticed every inch of her notice, because she knew him. Knew River's voice, knew his silences, knew his tattoos, his scars, his accent, the way he held a guitar like it was an extension of his body, the way his voice cracked on the word sorry every damn time because he meant it too much. And this was someone in a mask pretending to know what love sounded like. Kate finally saw it for what it was, desperation. Not River's, Ireland's. She opened her text, started a message to Ireland. You didn't just overplay your hand, you burned your own bridge and thought I wouldn't see the smoke. She deleted it, then typed again, never speak for him again, send. Then she blocked her, every number, every account, every history of silence is dressed as friendship. Gone. And she sat on the floor, alone in her office, shaking, because she'd almost believed it. Because she'd let Ireland shape the narrative of someone who never asked for a defense. Because, after everything, River hadn't outed her. He hadn't even retaliated. He had just gone quiet. And now, finally, Kate knew why that silence had hurt so much. Because it was real. Because he loved her, and she had let someone else speak over that love and turn into something ugly. It was raining when she got home. Not the soft kind, not poetic. This was ugly rain, sideways, cold, meant to punish. Kate slammed the car door harder than she needed to and trudged to the front door. Soaked through, numb, she didn't even hear Liam first. Mom? She looked up. Both boys were sitting on the hallway floor, each with a tablet in hand. Their school bags were still on, shoes dripping puddles onto the hardwood. We watched another Velvet Mask video, Finn said proudly, like it was a school project. He had bandages on his fingers. Kate froze. What? She said too quickly. Here, look. Liam held up the screen. There it was, the latest upload, one of River's more abstract ones. The lighting was dim. The camera never showed his face, only his hands as he played, fingers wrapped in fresh gauze. The movement was stiff, like it hurt. He hurt himself again, Finn said solemnly. Liam added, you should call him, tell him to take a break. Kate stood there like a statue. She was drenched, shivering, heart splitting open all over again. Because they didn't know, because they still loved him, because he hadn't asked them to, because he just quietly kept singing to them, bleeding through screens while she blocked him out and let someone else paint him like a villain. She tucked them into bed early, too soft with them, too careful. And when Finn asked, do you miss River? She didn't say yes or no. She just kissed his forehead and whispered, sleep tight, my love. Then she closed the door, entered the kitchen, and collapsed at the table. She didn't cry. She was past tears. What came now was a cold, focused kind of guilt, surgical. She'd betrayed someone who had only ever tried to love her in his broken, messy, honest way. And instead of listening, she had doubted, punished, walked away. She remembered his email, the one where he told her the truth, all of it, the things he was too ashamed to say aloud, the scars he let her see before he knew if she'd stay. And she had left. And not just left, she'd blocked, ignored, mocked, let Ireland speak over his voice and call it clarity. And now that she knew the truth, now that she saw the damage, she wanted to escape, but not to him. No, she didn't deserve that. She would run from him, push him away so hard he'd never try again. Because what woman breaks a man twice? She opened her laptop, wrote fast, didn't reread it, didn't let herself soften. Subject, stop, you need to move on. I'm not the girl you write about, and I never was. Maybe I like the attention. Maybe that's all this ever was. You send sad songs like they're gifts, but all I hear is noise now. I've moved on. You should too. Don't write to me again. Don't write about me again. This obsession you call love is starting to feel more like a story you're forcing into a happy ending. I'm not your ending. I never was. She hovered over the send button. Her hands shook. Her stomach turned. She hit send. Then she closed the laptop, pressed her forehead to the table, and whispered, I'm sorry. And meant it. Not for the message. For everything before it. It started as background noise. Kate had left the TV on after putting the boys to bed, too tired to care what was playing. A music interview channel, one of those indie segments with artsy lighting and offbeat hosts. She half listened while folding laundry, and then she heard the name, her name. So, Kate. She froze, turned slowly to face the screen. There he was. River, but not River. The velvet mask. Still faceless, a deep navy fabric wrapped cleanly around his head, a gold embroidered edge stitched where his jawline would be. His voice came through the distortion mic, smooth and slow, slightly disguised, but not enough. Not from her. Never from her, he chuckled softly. Ah, yes, Kate. The host leaned in, amused. Didn't realize the mask came with past lives. River tilted his head like he was smiling beneath the fabric. I must have let it slip somewhere. Rookie mistake. The host laughed. Well, there's a video going around. Some guy in a knockoff version of your mask ranting about her. Pretty intense stuff. Yeah, River said dryly. I saw it. Kate's heart started pounding. The host pushed. Care to clear the air? River sat quiet for a beat too long. Then I don't talk about people who hurt me in public, not because I'm protecting them, but because I'm protecting what was real. The host blinked. So, you're saying it's not you? Oh, I'm definitely not the guy with the compass tattoo pretending to know how I feel. Kate dropped the laundry basket. She sank onto the couch, barely breathing. The host tried to recover. But you did date someone named Kate? Another pause. Then River leaned forward, and even behind the mask, she could hear the weight in his voice. I loved someone named Kate. Silence. Not the awkward kind, the kind that held reverence. I still love her, he added softly. The host hesitated. Even after all of it? River shrugged. Love's not a contract, it's a flood. You either let it drown you or learn to breathe in it. Kate covered her mouth. He continued. She's brilliant, infuriating. She tells herself she's not worthy of love because it's easier than staying. She tries to push people away before they can leave first. I just didn't step back fast enough. The host cleared his throat. That sounds heavy. It was, River replied. It still is, but I'd rather carry the weight of her than forget what it felt like. Kate stared at the screen. Tears slipped down her cheeks without warning, because he wasn't angry. He wasn't retaliating. He was still standing exactly where she left him, honest, quiet, wounded, true. He hadn't let her rewrite him into a villain. He hadn't tried to shame her. He just told the truth, and he knew. He knew she pushed him away. He had seen through her the whole time. And still, he loved her. Kate stood and paced, her arms wrapped tightly around herself. She remembered Berlin, not just the night, but the after. The hour after she left, the guy at the bar, the kiss, the way it tasted wrong, the way her stomach clenched afterward like she'd swallowed a mistake whole. She hadn't told anyone, not even Suki, how she'd cried for an hour afterward, drinking too fast, laughing too loud. How her best friend had held her while she muttered, I think I just ruined something important. Because she knew, even then. She opened her laptop. The mean email sat in the sent folder like a knife with her fingerprints on it. She didn't open it. Didn't need to. He hadn't responded. He didn't have to. She sat down and opened a blank message, just stared at it. Cursor blinked at her like it was waiting for a confession. She typed 3 words. I miss you. Then she backspaced them. She wasn't ready. Not yet, but maybe she was done lying. To herself, to the silence, to him. The cursor blinked, again and again. Kate stared at the empty message field like it might bite her. She had typed and deleted the same 2 words for 15 minutes. I miss you. Sometimes she changed it. Sorry. Are you okay? I don't know how to fix this, but none of them felt right. None of them matched the storm inside her. Because the truth was, she didn't know what she wanted to say. Only that she wanted to say something. And that terrified her. Because what if he didn't reply? Worse, what if he did? What if he said the one thing she couldn't bear to hear? I'm done. Her hands trembled. She locked her phone and tossed it onto the blanket beside her. Her chest felt tight again, familiar. The same cold, clenching panic she'd had the night after Berlin, when she kissed someone else just to prove she was over it, then cried for hours into Lena's shoulder with her fists clenched like she was trying to hold her ribs together. She had told herself it was about control. But now she wondered, maybe it had always been about fear. She wasn't afraid of River hurting her. She was afraid of needing him, afraid of making room for someone who could leave, afraid that if she leaned too hard, he'd disappear, and she'd fall through the hole he left behind. She thought about her childhood, her father, gone before she could spell the word reliable. Her mother was doing her best, but distant, sharp when she was scared, warm, then cold, then warm again. Kate had learned early to carry her own weight. She could parent, she could plan, she could problem solve. But could she ask? Could she say, I need you without her skin crawling? Could she say, stay without hearing the echo of footsteps leaving? The ceiling stared back. Kate pulled her knees to her chest. The longer she sat with it, the more she realized something brutal. Every time River had come close, she built a wall. With silence, with distraction, with other men. Not because she didn't love him, but because she did. And loving someone who saw every hidden part of you, that was the most dangerous thing of all. She dialed her mother just past midnight. She didn't expect her to answer, but she did. The 3rd ring. Kate, her voice was groggy, tinged with Berlin's lilt, but immediately alert. Are you all right? Kate sat on the floor beside her bed, phone clutched to her ear like a lifeline. I just needed to talk. A pause. All right. I'm listening. Another pause. Then Kate whispered, why is it so hard for me to let people love me? Laura was quiet for a beat. Then, so it's about him. Kate swallowed hard. It's about me. Laura sighed, the sound thick and full of unsaid things. Katie, you've always been strong, even when you shouldn't have had to be. I don't want to be strong right now, Kate admitted. I want to be held, but I don't know how. I know, Kate pressed her hand over her eyes. Every time someone gets too close, I push. I don't even mean to. I panic. It's like my body remembers something I don't. And then I do something stupid, like that boy in Berlin. Silence. Lena told me, Laura said gently. Not in detail, but I figured. Kate's chest burned. He didn't know. I never told River, and I never wanted to kiss that guy. I just needed distance. Because River saw you, Laura said softly, and that terrified you. Kate let out a breath like she'd been holding it for years. Yes, she said. God, yes. There was a rustle on the other end. Laura settled into bed. You know what I think it is? She said. You don't fear love, Katie. You fear needing it. You fear losing it. And needing something you might lose feels like weakness. But it isn't. Kate wiped her eyes. Then what is it? It's being human, Laura continued, her voice like wool in Berlin snow. Letting someone in, really in, means letting them see the ugly bits, the frightened parts, the parts we don't want to claim. River already saw yours, didn't he? Kate nodded. Too many of them. Then maybe he's still waiting, not for you to be perfect, just for you to choose him, without the fight, without the armor. Kate pressed her forehead to her knees. She was quiet for a long time. Then she whispered, I don't know if he'll still take me. Laura didn't hesitate. Then be brave enough to find out. Kate sat with her back against the kitchen wall, knees hugged to her chest. The phone pressed so tightly to her ear it felt like an anchor. The air smelled faintly of tea, and something burning. She'd forgotten the kettle on again. Laura's voice came through low and steady. Katie, are you still there? I'm here, Kate whispered. Kate had stopped crying, not because she'd run out of things to feel, but because the tears had dried into something else, something quieter, something like grief. On the other end of the line, her mother didn't speak for a while. She let Kate breathe. Sit in the silence the way only someone who knows silence can. Then softly, you're afraid of his brokenness. Kate inhaled sharply. I'm afraid of how much he needs, she whispered. Of what I'll find if I open that door again. What I'll lose if I can't carry it. Laura hummed. Not judgment, just acknowledgement. But you're not afraid of loving him? She asked. Kate exhaled. I already do. That's not the problem. I'm afraid of him. She swallowed. Of his pain. Of the way he loves. The fact that it might never be simple. Kate's throat tightened. He's so much, Mum. And when he hurts, it's not quiet. It's seismic. I thought I could handle it. I thought I could hold space for it. But I keep picturing what would happen if I let him all the way in, and then he fell apart again. You don't think you could stay? I don't think I could survive watching him shatter. Not again. Not if it's because of me. Her mother let out a quiet sigh. Sweetheart, that's not love you're afraid of. That's powerlessness. No, her mother said. The problem is, he reminds you too much of yourself. That landed hard. Kate didn't deny it. He looks different now, she said instead. People keep saying it. Even you said it. Healthier, stronger, like he's sobered up or found peace or someone else. Laura's voice was gentle. He looks like a man who survived something. That doesn't mean he didn't suffer. It means he's still here. Kate's eyes stung. She didn't speak. Laura went on gently. You think love means holding someone together, that if you can't fix him, you'll fail. But that's not your job. He left, Kate said suddenly, and it surprised them both. Her voice cracked. After the train. We had months, Mom. Months where he was mine. I thought we were building something. I thought maybe this time we could keep it. She paused. Then he just disappeared. I know. He didn't call. He didn't write. Nothing. Just gone, like I was a phase. Laura was quiet, choosing her next words carefully. You were 17 the first time, Katie. And what you had then, it was the kind of love that burns too fast. The second time, well, you were older, but maybe still carrying the same fear. Kate nodded even though she knew her mother couldn't see. I didn't know how to hold him then, she whispered. I didn't know how to hold him either. We were so close, but I always felt like I was waiting for the sky to fall. And maybe he felt the same, Laura said. Maybe that's why he ran first. Kate exhaled slowly. That's what I keep thinking. Maybe he left because he thought I was already going to. There was another silence. This one is deeper. Then her mother's voice shifted, soft, but edged with something bittersweet. Your father was like that. Laura said. He was brilliant, intense, and somewhere deep down, always distant. I loved him with my whole heart, but I was always reaching, always one step behind. Kate leaned her head against the wall, eyes wide. I thought if I was softer, more patient, more quiet, he'd stay. But the truth is, some people don't know how to live without bracing for the fall. So they pull away before the good things can hurt them. And you still loved him? I did, Laura said simply. But he didn't know how to let someone in? Not really. And it broke us both. Kate's voice came out small. What if I'm just like him? You're not, because you're asking, because you're here, and because you haven't given up. But River might have. Laura's voice broke just slightly. I've seen him talk about you. Heard that interview, Katie. People don't sing like that for women they've forgotten. That hit like a heartbeat cracking open. I don't want to ruin him, Kate said quietly. But I'm scared I already have. And maybe you have, Laura said gently. But love isn't perfect. It's not about never breaking. It's about how many times you're willing to rebuild. Kate blinked fast, tears finally spilling. And then I need to rebuild. Laura's voice was soft, final. Start with the first brick. The morning after the call, the stillness hit harder. Kate couldn't sit still. She couldn't breathe right either. The things her mother had said, they echoed, like kindness too big for her chest. But instead of feeling braver, Kate felt exposed, flayed open by truth, and scared to death of what it meant to hope again. She sat by the window, eyes unfocused, her tea growing cold in her hand. And then it came, like it always did when she got too close to peace. Her father. She hadn't said his name aloud in months, maybe longer. Not since the boys asked where he went. Not since Finn pointed at the stars one night and whispered, "Is that where Granddad lives now?" Kate hadn't answered. Because the truth was, she never got one herself. One moment he was reading her a bedtime story with that dry Berlin lilt and warm calloused hands. And the next, he was gone. A heart attack. One breath, 1 second, and then silence that never really ended. She'd waited weeks for him to come back, years if she was honest. She learned early that people who matter most can vanish without warning, even those who promised to stay. River had vanished, too, not to death, but to distance, and that might have hurt worse because he had chosen it. She thought she could forgive that, thought she could reach out, but as she sat with that vulnerability, all she could feel was the weight of loss. She couldn't survive another disappearance. Not again. The mean email came easy, too easy. It poured out of her like venom disguised as logic. Her panic took shape as precision, cold, brutal, honest. But only the version of honest that twisted the blade just enough to feel like control. Subject, stop trying. You always act like I'm the one who's afraid. But maybe you're the one who doesn't know when to stop reaching. Maybe I'm just not yours. Maybe I never was. I'm tired of being your muse, River. I'm tired of being turned into a lyric every time you can't find peace. Find someone else to romanticize. I don't want your songs. I don't want your emails. And I don't want to be the girl you bleed about in interviews. I didn't ask for this. I didn't ask for you, so please stop. She read it once. Her finger hovered over the send button, and then she pressed it, just like that. Another fracture sealed with fire. But she wasn't done. Her pulse still roared. Her hands still shook. And there was one more person she needed to scorch. She opened a new message. To Ireland, you win. You've been trying to pull me away from him since the moment he came back into my life. Maybe you were jealous. Maybe you were afraid I'd stop needing you. Maybe you just liked watching me break. You sent fake screenshots. You impersonated him. You sent me a doctored video and hoped I'd believe it. For a while I did. That's on me. But don't ever contact me again. Not about him. Not about anything. I let you speak for me once. That will never happen again. She didn't sign it. She just sent it. And with it, she cut the last thread tethering her to someone who had poisoned the one thing she hadn't realized was still sacred. Then she curled up in bed and waited to feel better. She didn't cry either, just stared at the ceiling, whispering into the hollow quiet, I can't be what he needs. It sounded like a funeral. And now she believed it.